Um, I was born on the 2nd of June 1988, which makes me 21 years old. I was born at Harare Medical Hospital in Zimbabwe. I am a member of the Shona tribe. In my country, we have several tribes, but then there are two major tribes, which is Shona and Ndebele. In my country, we normally speak English, but then we have our tribal language, which is Shona, the one which we use to speak to our elders, for example, grandmothers and our aunts. My mother's maiden name is Lingiwe Simango. That is before she got married. After she got married, she took over my father's name, which is Maposa. My mother is 57 years old. She was born in 1952. My father passed away in 1995. His name was Lukas Maposa. We take our surname after his name. My father was born in 1947. We are 6 children in my family, and one is deceased. The firstborn's name is Tumai. The secondborn is Yambukai. The thirdborn, who passed away, was Darikai. The fourthborn is Teverai. I am the fifthborn. My local name is Yamurai. The lastborn is Pedzisai. We are 6 children in my family, and the names that we were given were a tale that my father used to tell us. The firstborn in my family is a boy. His name is Tumai. The secondborn, her name is Yambukai, and she is a girl. The thirdborn, who passed away, his name was Darikai, and he's a boy. The fourthborn, her name is Teverai, and she's a girl. I am the fifthborn, and my name is Yamurai. The lastborn is Pedzisai, and she's a girl. As I said before, our names came from a tale that my father used to tell. So the tale went on like this. There was a young boy who was sent to a certain place, and he was supposed to achieve something. So the first name of the firstborn in my family, which is Tumai, it means to be sent. He said that the king sent this boy on a journey in search of something. So that's where the first name came from, Tumai. And the next one is Yambukai, which means to cross over, like to cross a river. So the boy had to cross a river, and that's where my sister's name came from, which is Yambukai. And then the next one is Darikai, which is to cross a road, which means like crossing a road. So that's where his name came from. The young man who was sent on this journey, he crossed a river and he passed by a road. The next born's name is Teverai, which means to follow. The king made an order that people should follow the young man, as he had gone on a very long journey and they didn't know his whereabouts. But fortunately for the young man, he was helped by certain people in order to achieve his goal, where my name comes from, which is Yamurai, which means help. And finally, when he finished his journey, that's where my sister's name came from, which is Pedzisai, which means the end. I am a medical student at Ryazan Medical State University in Russia. I have been a student there for 3 years now. I am getting into my 4th year. Well, I am a general medicine student, and so I am just majoring in general medicine as of now. We go to school 6 days a week, from Monday till Saturday. We have one day of rest, which is Sunday. We are doing subjects like pathophysiology, histology, and the likes. And next year, we're going to be studying subjects like neurology and pathanatomy and the likes. My brother had started out as a dental therapist in Zimbabwe, and he decided to get a degree. So he looked for a place, and he managed to find a place in Russia, where he went to school for 6 years, and he graduated as a dentist. And as he was going through school, he saw that it was quite affordable there, and the lifestyle is not that good, but it was okay for studying. So he started going to England and working part-time jobs and he managed to raise money so that I could go to Russia. I went to Russia in 2006 as a dental student, as my brother had wanted, but on arrival I changed my course to medicine. Zimbabwe is a former British colony. It gained its independence on the 18th of April 1980. It had been under the government of Smith for all those years until we gained our independence. And after independence in 1980, we had a black president by the name of Robert Mugabe, who is currently the president. Zimbabwe, before independence, we had had a war for many years, and after independence there was reconciliation between the whites and the blacks. I began school at the age of 6 years, and that's when I started my primary school. Our primary school starts from grade 1 up till grade 7, so I finished my grade 1 till grade 7. And we then started our secondary education, which is 4 years, from Form 1 until Form 4. So I finished that, and I advanced my education with a 2-year course of advanced level, as they call it, which is 2 years. But for me, I did it in 1 year because I was supposed to go to Russia in August. The primary school I went to was called Mberry Primary School, which means forward in English. My secondary school was St. Mary's Anglican School. It was a school which was run by the Anglican Church. In our secondary education, we study subjects like mathematics, sciences. We do sciences, arts, and commercials. This is the time when you decide what you want to do. If you want to venture into sciences, then you major in those 4 sciences. We used to do subjects like chemistry, physics, and mathematics. That is if you wanted to do science. And for those who wanted to major in maybe arts, they would do history, Shona, which is our native language, and maybe literature. We did both English and African literature. We would also, if you wanted to venture into commercials, you would do subjects like there was commerce, mathematics, and accountancy. In my country, the Shonas believe in our Shona traditional religion, which is the belief in ancestral spirits. But I myself, I am a Christian. My Christianity dates back to my grandmother, my mother's mother, who is also a Christian, and my mother is also a Christian. There are often clashes between Christianity and the tradition, but they don't result in war or anything like that. I went to a Christian school, and hence I am also a Christian. My church is Pentecostal, and we have various churches in my country, but I don't think there are very many Muslims in my country. We're just Christians and our traditional religion. Growing up in Zimbabwe was quite an experience. I went to my grandmother's village to visit her once in 1995. Her village is a very small village, and it's located in a mountainous place. My grandmother lived by herself and would often just bring her groceries and everything. As a girl, I never experienced any form of abuse or anything. My country, we are privileged that girls there are awarded just the same opportunity as boys in terms of education. So we started off on a very good note. In where I stay, we have a 4-bedroom house. It's not very big, but it's managed to accommodate all 6 of us. It's not a big city. It's a very small city in comparison with Harare Central. I lived in a street which comprised of different people, and mostly people from Malawi, the ones who migrated from Malawi to my country. They're the people that we stay in our community. We live in houses that are attached, as in 2 houses are attached, because my mom told us that they were government houses. It was a government program that built those houses. So a person, you would decide to either extend it or not. But then they bought the houses from the government, and they are now privately owned. So we own a house which is it's not big, but it's quite comfortable. Unlike other young women that I've stayed in my community, I have lived actually a quite comfortable life. But then there are other girls in my country who belong to the white garment church, so it's called, whereby they engage into early marriages. They are forced to get married to men who are probably twice their father's ages, because of I think it's a myth actually, whereby the men say that the Holy Spirit has spoken to them, and it has told them to take such a young girl as a wife. So they end up entering into early marriages and not being able to finish school. There are a lot of these cases, and some organizations have come up in order to fight this, because it's child abuse per se. These men who belong to this church practice polygamy. They have up to 10 wives if they choose to. And I even know of a certain family whereby 2 girls got married to their aunt's husband. Their aunt's husband is the one who said that he had dreamt that these girls were also his wives. So they all ended up marrying the same man together with their aunt. There is an AIDS pandemic in my country, but I personally have met only one person who died of AIDS. She was a woman, and she used to live in the streets, in the next street from ours. She died. It was very, very terrifying. And according to statistics, or what I have studied, the spread of AIDS is due to, I think, ignorance actually. People, they don't want to take measures like maybe contraceptives or something like that, and other people, they do not believe in birth control or any other method like that, and hence the HIV spread is more. I also think that it's because most of the people in my country, they are not faithful. Some people get into early marriages when they are not ready, and hence they end up engaging in prostitution even when they are still in marriage. People do not get enough education over the issue, but over the years I would think that people have been trying to teach people about HIV and AIDS, but then people will always be people, I guess. They don't take it seriously. My ambition in life, of course, is to be a doctor, but I also want to write a book which will educate people about the wars and the things that happen in Africa. As a young girl, I never experienced war, but my grandmother used to tell us stories that used to happen during the wars. And as I have studied, actually I have learned in the United States, as I've been here, about the war in DRC and how girls are being raped and everything. So I want to write a book whereby I merge what my grandmother taught me together with the issue that is happening in the DRC. Well, the DRC is the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was known as Zaire, and prior to that it was also known as the Congo. My grandmother used to tell us stories about the things that used to happen in war, and I remember one story in particular whereby she said that she witnessed the killing of an uncle of hers. It's quite a traumatic experience, as she puts it. She said that well, they tied them up because the rebels suspected that these people, they were traitors, so they were tied up and put on long sticks. My grandmother, as she narrated, she said that they would put a stick, they would maybe put a stick in their mouth and let it come out from behind their mouth. That is how they would kill the person, and in front of everyone, so that everybody could see. And she witnessed this. A family member of hers happened to be one of the traitors, as they said, and he happened to experience such a death. And I think this still happens in Africa, in countries like Congo, which have wars and everything, whereby girls get raped and people are brutally murdered. The Democratic Republic of Congo is well known for massacre killings, as in they kill vast people, a vast number of people. The story that my grandmother used to tell me, it happened during the colonial era of the British colony. And the people that used to perpetrate these killings, they were the people that were fighting against the colonial rule. So the people that they were killing, they thought that they were the traitors, the people that were working for the colonial rulers. Well, it's really not easy being a black person in Russia. Upon arrival, it was very difficult for me because even at the airport, there was no one who could speak English. They were all speaking Russian, and when you get there, they will segregate you. Sometimes they will even put you in a room like you're a criminal or something. And when we reached the school, actually my brother is the one who came to take me because he knew his way around and he could speak Russian. When we arrived at school, it was very, very different from my home because it was during winter. It was in November, so it was winter in Russia. Everything was very different, but the people were very cold. As we were walking on the streets, you would hear people screaming "Abizyan," which means monkey in English. It's Russian. They would call us monkeys, all kinds of things. And when they approach you and they see that you can't speak Russian, they would insult you. They would be saying all kinds of things. But over the years, as we have learned Russian, some people that have guts, they actually answer the Russians. If the Russians call them Abizyan, which means monkey. They will call them svinina, which means pork or pig. So the Russians, they don't like it, but they are very violent. I really haven't heard about anyone being killed over the years that I've been staying in Russia, in my city in particular, because it's not a very violent city. But in cities like St. Petersburg and Moscow, there have been reported very many cases of black people being killed. Like in the metro station, when you're standing there, they can just come and throw you at the metro, and unfortunately the police will not even follow the story. There is nothing they can do about it, but it can just maybe appear on in the newspapers or something like that. But life as a black person in Russia is very tough. Well, I have seen a big difference ever since I've been in the United States. The way that people are treated here, it's totally different from the way that we are treated in Russia. Upon arrival, I could ask for help if I needed it, and you know, you would get an answer with someone smiling, something which is very, very rare in Russia. If you ask for help in Russia, first of all, you won't even find a person who speaks English, and they are not even willing to help you. But the people here, I think they are very warm as compared to Russians. But as I've been here, I've witnessed, well, on the news actually, the case of Professor Gates and the police officer. Those are just some of the issues that we hear, but I personally, I have not experienced that. In Zimbabwe, we have a president that has been ruling for, I think, over 30 years now. Zimbabwe was a very, very peaceful country. It was known as the breadbasket of Africa up until, from 1980 up until, I think, around 1990 or the year 2000, somewhere there, where I think that the whole issue of chasing white people and everything, it was like a plan, I think, because we were heading towards elections and maybe the president didn't have anything to hold on to, so he decided to chase the white people. But to my surprise, when we got our independence, the president declared reconciliation, which meant that white and black people were supposed to stay together in harmony. And I think if he wanted land from the white people, he could have asked for it there diplomatically, as in would have sat and talked about the issue, right, since we had reconciled. But this was a political strategy, I think. When he saw that he was to run yet another term, which was probably his third or his fourth term, he decided to use this this land issue so that he could still hold on to power. And over the last years, we had an election, I think it was in 2004 or something like that. I think it's 2004. We had an election and the president lost that election without any question, but he still insisted that he had won. He actually rigged the elections, I think. And is it last year, I think in 2008, there were other elections in Zimbabwe whereby the opposition party won and the president refused to release the results of the election. People had to wait for a month to get the results, and on the next rerun the opposition party withdrew. They didn't want to run against the president because he was simply going to do the same thing. Our president is in his 80s and most people think that, well, he's probably suffering from Alzheimer's or something like that. But it's been really tough on the Zimbabwean people because now our country is made up of two classes, the high and the low class. The high class is a they are very wealthy people, but the low class, they are wealthy at the expense of the low class people. The people that are in Zimbabwe that are suffering, they are really suffering, and things are not well for them. But then there are some people who are extremely rich that can even manage to send their kids to study in countries like the United States. That's how rich they are. So it's there. The country has been split into two different worlds of the rich and the poor, but the rich are getting richer at the expense of the poor. In my estimation, I think that Zimbabwe is a very rich country, as it was also known as the breadbasket of Africa. It was known so not only because of the vegetation or the maize, all kinds of things that we used to export to other countries. It was known so because of the rich soil, which is filled with minerals. My country is a host to diamonds, a lot of diamonds, a lot of gold, and other types of minerals. So I believe that it is a very rich country. It just needs to be managed properly. And I also think that even recovery for Zimbabwe, if people take the right procedures, it will not even take 10 years for it to be up on its feet again. Because in my country, before this era that started right now, we were self-sustained. We used to have actually they are still there, but then unfortunately they are closed. We had factories. We used to manufacture our own things. People used to just go to their fields, get their cotton, and they have a cotton factory ready to, turn the things into clothes and everything. So I think it's very rich. And infrastructure wise, in comparison with most African countries, we were actually rated as the second best from South Africa, as in we have the best infrastructure in Africa. But I don't know right now the situation, but that's one. The current president, the one who has been there since 1980, his name is Robert Mugabe, and he's the head of the ruling party, which is known as ZANU-PF. The opposition party's leader, his name is Morgan Tsvangirai. He is the head of the Movement for Democratic Change, or known as the MDC. Currently, they have formed a coalition government, and people are saying that things are getting better, as some sanctions that have been placed against my country, they're being lifted. The time that I've been here in the United States, I've been very interested in the news. I've been learning about the issues that are happening right now. For example, the health issue. I personally think that people in this country should be very grateful for having a president that actually suggests and who doesn't just impose things. In comparison to my country, I think people here are very fortunate, and they should use the opportunity that they have right now. Because presidents in Africa, most of the presidents, I think, they do not have time to go on the television and try and explain things to people. Whatever they put on the table, you just have to take it. Us on TV, we just hear that a certain bill has been passed. You don't even know where that bill came from, the finances of that bill, where it's going to come from. So I think when I listen to people complaining, it actually puzzles me, because the kind of life that I've lived in Zimbabwe is it's kind of like dictatorship. Actually, the president just says whatever he wants and it passes. There is no objection to what he says. No wonder why he has managed to stay in power for so long. And So on that note, I would really think that America is fortunate to have presidents who can actually address them on issues and hear what people have to say instead of just detecting whatever they want. I think that America is blessed to have President Obama as their president. He seems like an intellect and somebody who's not rational. He's very calm. I have seen him addressing the nation on several issues and he's just great. I mean, my country would give up everything to have a president like that. You know, at least you have that security that the president is actually doing something to improve the way that his people are living, to improve the living conditions of the people. Unlike in our countries, it's all about the power. If I am to tell you that I think the president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, is amongst the richest presidents even in the world, not just in Africa but in the world. He is a very wealthy man. He owns diamond mines, I don't know how many, but his country is crumbling. That's the kind of presidents that we have in Africa. The ones that only think about self-gain and what they can take out of the country. And for crying out loud, they have even taken a lot, but because of greed, they still feel it's not enough. But America has a president who is willing to go up and down to stabilize the economy. And I think because of some of the presidents that America has had, it's going to stay on top. I believe that people here should just start being grateful. Actually, if you go out into the world, especially in Africa, and if you study the politics of Africa, you will understand and you will come and really thank God for the privilege that you've been given. I would like to become a cardiologist, and unfortunately at the moment I cannot practice at home because the situation hasn't stabilized as per se, but I would like to practice in England or maybe in the United States because it's better and more conducive. But I would like to help the people at home, maybe build a hospital for them that could help them in a way. Sunday is the only day that we are off from school in Russia, so Sunday is the day we do our laundry. That's the same day we do our shopping, and we have an organization, it's a fellowship which is known as Rizal Medical State University Fellowship, whereby people of the Christian faith come together and we worship together. We have a student board which governs the fellowship, and I am a Bible study leader within the fellowship. On Sunday we go shopping after the fellowship, which starts at 11 a.m. and ends at 1 p.m. Afterwards, we normally go shopping for our groceries at a local supermarket. We go by bus, as that is our mode of transport in Russia, and we normally come back by taxi because it will be risky for us to move with our groceries in the buses. Well, at school we go to this big supermarket. It's called Nash. They have a variety of things, but then it's a new supermarket. The people that came before us, like for example some who graduated last year, they used to tell us that when they came there were no shops at all in Russia, and most of the shops that we see now, they are new. Even McDonald's is new. It was built when I was already there, so they don't have very many shops. But then the Nash that we go to is the most affordable. It has various kind of things, but unfortunately for us, Russian food, it doesn't taste that good as far as we're concerned. So there is not much to select from. Our normal diet consists of maybe just rice and chicken, and when you cook their food, if you don't put spices, it tastes kind of bad. So it's really hard for us to shop in Russia, but I guess the people there, they're accustomed to it. My school is made up of people from different countries in Africa and some Arabic countries. There are people who speak French and English, and the people that can't speak either French or English end up learning in Russian. We have people from countries like Cameroon or the Congo. The Congo, I think we have only about 2 students. We have people from Morocco, Tunisia, and Angola. The Angolans, they learn in Russian because they can't speak English or French, but the Tunisians and the likes, they speak French, so they learn in French. The English-speaking countries are Zimbabwe, Zambia, Uganda, Namibia, Malawi. We have very many students from different countries, but according to me, the most friendly are the ones from Uganda. They are very nice people, and most of my friends are Ugandan, but my best friends are there are a few from Uganda and Malawi and Botswana, which are my neighboring countries. And normally you find out that people from a certain section in Africa, they normally hang out together. Like us, we are the Southerners, and we have many things in common, like culturally and everything, so it's easier for us to get along. The people that are from the West, they have their own cultures, so it's easier for them to get along. But then we have the only black people who speak French. They're from Cameroon, and we don't have much association with them because of language barrier. But over the years, since we've been studying Russian, we have been communicating with each other in Russian. Zimbabwe is located in the south central per se. We are surrounded by South Africa, which is in the south of Zimbabwe. In the west, kind of southwest, I guess, you'll find Botswana. In the north, there is Zambia, and in the east, we have Mozambique. We share the Victoria Falls with Zambia, and there is a river that flows between Zimbabwe and Zambia, which is known as Zambezi. We also share a river with South Africa, which is known as the Limpopo River. It passes through Zimbabwe and South Africa. There is free passage between our countries, like between Zimbabwe and Mozambique, Zimbabwe and Zambia, Zimbabwe and Botswana, but then we require a visa to go to South Africa. Zimbabwe was known as Southern Rhodesia, and our capital city, which is presently Harare, it was known as Salisbury.
And how the currency has changed.
The inflation in Zimbabwe began, I think, around 1999, 2000, somewhere there. That is the time when the government decided to chase the white people that were in my country, and hence sanctions were imposed on Zimbabwe. So there was very little inflow or outflow of products in my country, and there was absolutely no trade between us and foreign countries. So this had a major effect on the people of Zimbabwe, because over the years, I must say, we had been used to certain luxuries, and this came like all of a sudden, so it was very difficult for people to adjust to, and hence most people resorted to going to other countries not exactly to seek refuge, but to find work so that they could be working and providing for their families whilst they're out there. And most of the people that used to work in places like banks and all those major precise, most of them, they left the country to go look for greener pastures. So as the economy continued to worsen, the situation in Zimbabwe was really unbearable, even up until this day, that our inflation rate became so low that our money lost its value, and hence we had to change to the US dollar that we are currently using now. And this only came about after the opposition party had formed a coalition government with the current government, and hence some sanctions were lifted on Zimbabwe. That is how we managed to get to use the US dollar. And also over the years that the inflation was going up and things were not good in Zimbabwe, our president was refusing aid from other countries. Sometimes when they bring in food aids, he would maybe change the cover and make it look like it's the government which had given. But when you scrap the cover, you find out it's written USA or some other country which had donated those things. But then for them, they wanted to make it seem as though the government was the one which was giving this aid to people. And so it traumatized most people. And the unfortunate thing was that most of the people that went out of the country, they never even bothered to invest in their country. We have people that are in the UK right now. We have very many Zimbabweans that are in the UK. We have Zimbabweans that are in the US, I guess. But then some are well doing and they will not even make an effort to invest in their country, of which I think it would help if the people that are outside the country would invest something to help our economy. In 2008, when I was at school, we saw on the news that there was a cholera outbreak in my country. It was really devastating for me because I have family that is currently in Zimbabwe, but fortunately they were not affected by the cholera. It was reported that in June about 500,000 people were affected with cholera, and according to me, I think it came about because the government did not have enough money to buy chlorine and other things to purify the water. So at times the pipes would be flowing with dirty water, and hence people becoming contaminated with this water. And also I was told that people would go for some days without water, like maybe even a week without water. So they would go and find sources, and unfortunately where I stay, we don't have lakes or rivers, so they would go maybe to a place where there is a pipe which has bursted, and they would go and fetch water from there, and hence the cholera pandemic erupted. It has killed many people, but as of now I'm not very sure of the number. When the cholera pandemic started, unfortunately our president, Robert Mugabe, he denied that there was a cholera outbreak in Zimbabwe, but it was something that was known because our neighboring country, for example South Africa in particular, they were also being affected because people were running away from our country to seek medical care in South Africa. So they set up camps whereby they were treating cholera patients from Zimbabwe. Recently, the people that have been sick, it was hard for them to get medical attention because we do have hospitals in Zimbabwe, we do have public hospitals, we have private hospitals, but most of the people cannot afford to go to private hospitals. The people that can afford to go to private hospitals, of course they get care, which I think is okay because they pay a lot of money for it. But then the ones that cannot afford and have to go to a public hospital, unfortunately sometimes there are no medicines at the hospitals. And my mother was telling me that the hospitals now, there was not enough accommodation for people because so many people were sick, and hence some people you just find them lying maybe on the floor. That is in the public hospitals, and obviously the private hospitals cannot do anything about it because what they're all about is money, and as long as you don't have the money, you don't get care at a private hospital. My mother is a businesswoman, so she calls herself. She runs a small peanut butter making business. She even runs it at home. Whilst my father, when he was still alive, he was a pool superintendent. He used to work at a local swimming pool. My mom, after my dad died, she really worked hard. She ventured into various small businesses so that she could send her kids to school as well as our upkeep. It was not easy for her, but then over the years she managed to educate my eldest brother together with the rest of the kids who were also going to school. But then my eldest brother was a bit advanced, so he finished his school and he managed to take a course in dental therapy, which helped him raise money for a while because he immediately found a job, and he was working in Zimbabwe before he decided to go out of the country and get further education. So my mom she really has been a phenomenal woman. She has worked hard. The reason why she didn't even choose to remarry was because of the burden of having 6 kids. And to think of it, I was only 5 years old and I have a younger sister. Most of us at that time my father died, we were still in primary school, so it was very hard for her. But I really give her credit because she has worked so hard for us to be here. And in my community, it's hard for a single mother to raise kids in the right way, because most of the kids that have single mothers, their mothers either some even run away, or some they start prostitution, and hence their kids follow suit. So my mom had to work hard, and with the help of my brother, who had to grow up very fast because of my father's death. With the two helping each other, they managed to raise all of us, and we are all well educated. My brother right now is in the UK. He is trying to get a permit to work as a dentist, and my mother is at home. Though she says business has not been very good at the moment due to the current situations, but she has managed to survive because my brother, the one who's in the UK, he helps her every now and then. He sends her money so that she could help my family. Zimbabwe has been graced by nature, and that's the reason why I think it is a very wealthy country, because we are hosts to very different kinds of animals, wild animals. We do have a lot of national parks. For example, Wange National Park. We have such a phenomenal cave in Zimbabwe, which is known as the Chinoi Caves. The people believe that it's sacred, and for you to go to the cave, you have to have a guide. We have a site which is known as the Great Zimbabwe. It is the early housings that people used to build, but it was for the king, and hence it is a very tall structure which is now for tourist purposes. And we are also the hosts of the majestic Victoria Falls, which is known as Mosi Oya Tunya, the smoke that thunders. We have I think the third highest mountain in Africa, which is known as Inyangani Mountain, and on top of that mountain there is a waterfall which flows from the top of the mountain. So according to me, Zimbabwe is rich. It's extremely rich. In my grandmother's village, they used to grow a lot of tea that used to sell. They grow peas, they grow so many things, but we just need people to come together and work together for the common good of the country.